What is up and how's it going? Welcome into a very special edition, a new show edition of the Noble Steady Sort of Sports Talk. We're going to have this show be called Fantasy 365, where we're going to be covering all your fantasy football needs 365 days a year because, fantasy football just doesn't stop. And as you see today, I have my co host Shane with me. Shane, how's it going, buddy?
What's up, brother?
Oh, man, nothing much. I'm excited about this episode, man. I'm excited. We've been talking about this for a while. Happy we finally got it going. I do want to shout out Joey. He will be a part of this episode, these shows moving forward. He just unfortunately had other obligations to handle this week, so he will be off this week, but be back next week for us. But we will get a set schedule going and be able to post that for y'all, so y'all know when your episodes for your shows that you're watching with Noble Steady are coming out. So let's just get into it, Shane. So today we're going to be covering players we liked, players we were right about, players we were wrong about, players we're not going to draft again, players we're excited to draft, and disappointments and surprises. We got a lot to unpack, Shane. Are you excited or what?
I'm excited. It was. I think you can agree. It was a strange year. It was a little bit out of a year. It didn't go exactly how we thought it would. We were right on some things. Some of us, me and you, different opinions on stuff. So I'm excited to unpack it.
Yeah, of course. And yeah, I love how you say it. This year was just really strange. The quote unquote process, right? Some of the process wasn't as sound as it normally is. Like you would make moves thinking that you're following in the process, your game plan, and then this season just would either throw an injury or some weird suspension or something at you. It was wild ride, but yeah, I'm definitely excited to unpack this stuff. So without further ado, let's just jump right on into it. The first one we're gonna talk about, the players we were right about. Shane, I'll let you take this one, buddy. Go ahead.
All right, so we're both in agreement. Ladd McConkey, we both
Sir.
were on a Georgia prospect going to the Chargers, even though they're run first. Preseason rank 44th, finished 12th.
Yeah, and PPR scoring. That's
PPR scoring. That's great. He looked great. He reminded me kind of like of a young Cooper Kupp. He just was catching everything that was there.
I do want to preface, it's not because he's white.
That is correct. Yeah, but he just
they do have very similar play styles. And when I was watching scouting him before he came out, I was like, dude, I don't want to compare him to Cooper Kupp, but that's who I see.
Right. And I liked him. It's hard to bet against, and it's not to be an SEC homer, but these SEC receivers just keep proving that they're going up against a little bit more solid talent defensively. You're going to kind of see that in the surprises and some of your picks that you had this year. These guys are just,
oh my God,
these guys are just making the leap faster. At least it's not knocking the other guys that came out,
Yeah.
So, and we'll kind of get into that too for some surprises because they just, they usually say tight ends take 3 years to really hit their stride. Sometimes sophomore, junior season for some receivers, and you see these guys just moving faster.
Yeah, exactly. No, and I don't want to give that one away, but I think most people know who we're talking about, but he'll definitely make his appearance. But look, so so why don't you give me one on your list that we don't agree on?
I don't know if we don't agree on it. It wasn't on yours. Is Chase Brown? Yeah, I was, in redraft leagues, and I think when we're talking about this, we don't do a lot of redraft leagues together. But I was targeting him really late. I like to go heavy receiver. And where he might not have had the rushing yards, his receiving in that offense was incredible. He just they signed Zach Moss. I didn't really believe in the Zach Moss hype, and he just to me showed out and was consistent week in and week out to help you win matchups.
Oh yeah, Chase Brown was a PPR darling. I forgot. I think they were playing the Steelers the first time, and I was watching it. Or it could be Baltimore. I'm not 100% on this one, and it just seemed like every play was a dump off pass to him. It was like death of 1,000 cuts. You know what I mean? But it was impressive. I did like him coming out of college, but I agree with you. He has really showed out this year, and I really like that pick, buddy, for sure.
Yeah, I don't know if he's a long-term solution, like stud wise, like a Gibbs, but for this year, I was targeting him, and it worked out. Similar, I think your second choice. You took a guy a little bit later, and I think he helped guide you to some wins.
Yeah, so I'm glad you said that. We're talking about another running back, and that's going to be Bucky Irving for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Yeah, he wasn't ranked in the top 50, That's the list I was going off of with ESPN. These ranks are based on ESPN PPR scoring. He, as of right now, or he ended the season, the fantasy football season, as the RB 15, and that's what's splitting time with Rachaad White. Coming out, I really liked his running style. For a smaller guy, he runs pretty hard. He always had the catching ability, so those combinations was definitely worth a flyer. And where you got him in redraft, I mean, you're talking what, a 13th round pick, 12th round pick?
I was able to pick him up off the waiver wire in my, in a 10-man league.
Exactly. So, and this guy legitimately turned into a league winner. And I'll tell you why my thought process other than the scouting was why I liked him was his situation. In Tampa, they had Rachaad White. He was never really consistent running the ball, right? Like he was averaging 3.8, 3.7, 3.5 yards a carry. In the NFL, you kind of want to be around that 4 mark. But what made Rachaad White great is that he's just a PPR monster. So I knew Buck was going to come in and take some of the work. Now, look, I'll be the first to admit, did not see him going for over 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns. Not my predictions. But yeah, he balled out, and you got to give him a shout out on that one. And as much as it pains me to shout out a Tampa Bay Buccaneer, but he was fantastic this year.
Yeah, he was great. And then, so I went a little off the wall with these next couple picks. I went with people I faded that I was right on instead of just home run hits.
I like it.
The first one was CJ Stroud, and I love the player, but from a fantasy standpoint, I stayed away from him. People were drafting him 4th, 5th round.
Yeah, it's more the price tag.
And he just really, I thought I was wrong at first, but they really just have not looked to be the same team the second half of the year. And, I know a lot of people who did draft him, were stretching to go to Tua. I think somebody started Cooper Rush over him just because they couldn't even expect him to get 15, 16 points in a week. So they just had to bench him, which is tough when you draft him that high.
Oh, if you have to bench a guy, and he's on one of my disappointment lists. I drafted him in the 2nd round. We'll get to him later. But when you draft a guy in top 4 rounds, top 5 rounds, you're really counting on that guy to be a key contributor. And when you miss, unless you hit like a Bucky Irving or somebody off the waiver wire, it's really a hard thing to bounce back from. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
100%. But let me ask you, though, since we're talking about the Texans and CJ Stroud, do you think it's more Stroud's play, or do you think the league's kind of catching up to Bobby Slowick's offense in Houston?
I think obviously there's tape out there for the offense, so you can defend it better. I think part of the problem, at least from a fantasy standpoint, is that CJ Stroud does not run.
No.
So those guys that you're drafting high either are throwing for a lot of touchdowns or can rush and throw. So Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow's throwing 3 or 4 touchdowns a game.
Yeah.
You expected Mahomes, even though he finished 10th as a QB, he didn't look himself this year. But you're expecting those guys to have he'll get some run yardage. Your Kyler Murray's, Anthony Richardson. So CJ Stroud doesn't run.
Oh, I'm glad you brought that name up, Anthony Richardson. If you had to go going through fantasy football wise, not talk about real football, okay? Fantasy football wise, going forward, would you rather have CJ Stroud or Anthony Richardson?
Can I pick neither?
Well, I mean, you can, but
if I'm picking one, I would take CJ Stroud just based off the fact that he didn't have to tap himself out of a game because he was out of shape.
Oh no, very fair, but it's a fair question to ask though.
Well, we'll get into Richardson's on one of my lists.
Oh, okay.
So we'll at the end of these this episode. So
man, you gotta love the previews that we're throwing out to y'all.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff.
Now you were on a guy who I picked the other person in this backfield. I thought Gus Bus was going to lead him, but you were on J.K. Dobbins. Even with all the injury history, why did you like him this year?
I've always been a fan of J.K. Dobbins. I was very worried about the about the injuries. Look, it's a real concern. The dude's blown out his knee twice already. It's also opportunity. Look, Gus Bus is great. Don't get me wrong, but you know what you're getting. He's a bruising back that doesn't have a lot of wiggle to him. J.K. Dobbins gave them a little more wiggle and oomph to the offense. So that was where my thinking was. Now, look, he far exceeded my expectations. And look, the injury bug did creep up again, but he was a solid fantasy football contributor for you during, like, especially the beginning of the season, middle of the season. Now, I got hurt towards the end and kind of screwed you towards the playoff run, but what are you going to do? I'll take 766 yards and 8 touchdowns all day. He started as the preseason 40 rank of 40, and then he I actually missed that when we actually finished that. Let me check that real quick. I apologize, people. Thought I had that in my notes. He's a little down there, but like
he dropped off a little bit just because they had a couple big performances at the end of the season, but he was in the top 25 for the majority of the year, even with missing the games.
Yeah, like some names that are around him in the ESPN thing are like Tony Pollard, Rashad White. Like, that's solid contributing numbers for a guy that you probably got really late in your draft.
Right. My next guy actually is somebody we were both right about. I think you'll remember we had some in-depth discussions on this, which was Sam Laporta, and we were right on fading Sam Laporta.
Yes,
similar to Stroud, based on his draft cost. His if you had him in a dynasty or a keeper league like I had, hey, you're going to take. He was rated the number 1 tight end.
Yeah.
You're obviously going to roll with him, but some leagues he went in the 3rd round. Like it just to me was too high of a cost. So he was another guy. I think we were both right on fading. We both were just like, hey, we're going to take a shot on somebody later.
100%. And I completely agree with you. We did have many discussions about it because he was so good last year. But here's the issue. If you go back and look at his numbers, he was very touchdown dependent. Touchdown dependent. And when you get guys that are getting 12, 13 touchdowns a year, especially at tight end, that number can fluctuate. And there's just so many weapons on an offense. That's what I was betting against. That offense was just going to spread the ball around, and he wasn't just going to be a focal point, which ended up happening. Not that he's not a good player. He's fantastic. He is a great tight end in real life. It's just with the other weapons around him and the fact that they run the ball so much, I was just not for that bet. So I agree with you completely on this one.
Is it because of the emergence of Jameson Williams and his greatness? That's sorry. Corey paid me $5 to say that.
That's fine. That's fine. So since you brought him up, here's the issue with Jameson Williams. He is a good player. Yes, I said it. He is a good player. The consistency's not there. And for a guy that was taken 12th overall, I feel like you just need more from him. That's it. That's all I have to say about him. I just don't think he's a top tier wide receiver like some of the other people that we know think he is.
Yeah, I think they do that just to get you riled up. But
100%.
I always have you back on. I mean, Jameson Williams has looked really, really well this year compared to just abysmal first 2 years. I feel like they use him a lot the same way that Kansas City's trying to use Worthy, which is they're doing a lot of like reverses and quick screens because he's quick. But in that offense, you just, unless it's St. Brown or the running backs, you have to just be aware that you might take a 6-7 point week from one of those guys like Laporta or Williams. So, and that's tough when you're trying to compete. And back to Laporta, if you have to draft him 3rd or 4th overall, that's just not what you're looking for that round.
Yeah, that's what we're saying before. You miss on those picks, it puts you behind the 8 ball, 100%. So I'm going to save one on my list until last, and I'll say it. I don't want to. No, I won't say that. But I'm going to talk about probably one of the most obvious choices that I was right about was Ja'Marr Chase. And the only reason I put him on there, like I know Captain Obvious is one of the best wide receivers in the league. Dude, the season he put up this year, my goodness. Over 17. He's the only receiver in NFL history with 1,700 yards and 17 touchdowns and had 127 catches. Good gracious.
I mean, I think it has a lot to do with where he went to high school.
Yes,
shout
100%.
out Rummel Raiders, baby. You know what? I doubted him at the beginning of the year. When you're looking at him, and there was a lot of stuff going on when you're drafting with like Lamb and Jefferson and him, where those guys all fell in most of my drafts till, I mean, I think Jamar Chase might have went 7th.
Yeah, a lot of contract stuff.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the guy that got him in my league, his draft was like Jamar Chase, and then he got back around to Saquon, and then he took Lamar, and then he had Brian Thomas Jr. as well. I mean, he won the league.
Yeah, clearly.
Like at a runaway. I think he scored 195 points in the championship, and a guy scored 94 that he played.
That doesn't shock me.
So,
Dude,
that's not a 3 receiver league with a flex. That is only 2 running backs, 2 receiver, and a flex. So I mean, it's just this. But Jamar Chase has just been incredible. He looked incredible again last night.
Yep.
You know, I don't think anyone in the AFC is rooting for the Broncos or the Dolphins to lose today. So, because that team, if they get into that division into the playoffs, they're gonna make some noise. Especially the 4 and 5 seed are very weak. I know we talked about that in another episode. That Texans Steelers game, I'm assuming is going to be the first game out on Saturday, because it's just going to be boring. I think
it's going to be, especially if it's Pittsburgh and Houston, that is going to be a slugfest of just running the football and hoping that you can score 6 points. That's essentially what it's going to be.
Yeah,
but.
Now you're gonna save your last person, you said?
Oh yeah. You know, you know I'm gonna have a whole like soliloquy about this person.
Well, I got one more person, and it was a fade, and it was Tank Dell.
Okay.
Whereas I liked him, and we had in my main league, someone drafted Nico Collins, and the dude like two rounds later is like, I'm going to draft the highest scoring Texans receiver there is this year, and it's Tank Dell. And then to give him credit, he put $100 down on the yardage for the year.
I mean, look, you put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah, I like Tank Dell. I don't know why the Texans have him in goal line. You know, this year was
a freak
the way they
accident.
use him. It was a fluke, but
yeah,
some of the stuff they do with him, they just make me nervous, especially the way it lasted last year. So I just kind of faded him. So those are some of the guys that I think me and you both were usually on the same page. We were right about. But this next guy that Tyler is madly in love with from a fantasy standpoint.
Maybe real life too.
I don't know. Make sure you leave time, because I think Tyler's about to get on the soapbox for another 10 or 15 minutes about this gentleman.
I'll say about Tank Dell real quick. First and foremost, thoughts and prayers to him. Hope he comes back from that injury. I just don't like. But speaking strictly of fantasy, why I agree that we're in agreement of fading him. Adding Stephon Diggs, having Nico Collins there, then you add Joe Mixon. There's only so much ball that can go around, and his price tag of like a 6th, 7th round pick was just a little too high for me for a guy who may not get 70 targets. So that's why I faded him. I love him as a player. I love the production originally, but I don't know if he comes back from this injury the same. I mean, dislocated kneecap, torn ligaments. It's going to be hard. But back to the positive. Yes. My fantasy football man crush was by far Malik Neighbors this year, with a absolutely abysmal quarterback situation. And we can both agree there. Awful.
It didn't get any better. It just kept getting worse.
It kept getting worse. Yes.
And he kept getting better.
And kept getting better. Yes. He had 120 something targets. Okay. Which he converted into 104 receptions, 1,140 yards, and 6 touchdowns, and only 14 games. Now, granted, the touchdown numbers are a little inflated from the last game he played, where he had 2 or 3. But, dude, the sky's the limit. And I'm going to put my stamp down here right now. Next year, we're going to be talking about Malik Neighbors as we're talking about Jamar Chase as possibly the best wide receiver in the league. That he has the movement skills, the run after the catch ability, and plus the route running and hands that are elite. But what separates him, and I think what Jamar Chase has and Jefferson has and all your top wide receivers, yeah, I went all LSU for a reason. They have that dog in them, right? Like, they want the ball, they want to score, and they don't care how it's going to happen. And they're going to beat that defender off the line of scrimmage. So I can't wait till they get a comp. Like, you put Tyrod Taylor in that offense and have him throwing the ball. I don't see why he doesn't have 120 receptions.
So in true Giants fashion, they won a game to really put themselves out of. I mean, I don't know why Shadur Sanders wants to go to the Giants, but I don't know if they get a quarterback or not. You know, the mocks have been like Travis Hunter to the Patriots,
Yep.
McMillan to the Titans, and then the two quarterbacks. But
Yep.
I did see something interesting that they said if the Giants aren't going to be able to get their next quarterback, sign Jameis because he'll at least put up points. And I mean, Jameis throwing a ball to Malik Neighbors would be exponentially better than anything he had this year. So, you know, it's hard to fight the stats when 4 out of the top 6 guys in fantasy all went to LSU.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
You can't bet against those LSU guys unless they prove you wrong.
Yeah, and look, and we'll have one that mentioned our biggest surprises coming up. But look, oh man, now you're saying Jameis, and you got me like all warm and tingly inside because like, look, he may throw 5 interceptions a game, but he will get the ball to him. If he can make Jerry Jeudy relevant in fantasy football, imagine what he can do with Malik Neighbors.
Yeah, I mean, I watch the Giants closely because my older brother's a huge Giants fan, so I'll be taking a look at him. But I mean, I guess here's the real question: if you're drafted in a redraft league, how do you rank the top 3 receivers for next year?
Oh, jeez. All right, so
if you can be unbiased with Neighbors,
yeah. Well, Neighbors right now can't be top 3. Like, I'm gonna be honest here.
Okay.
I mean, you got to put the 2 LSU guys, Jefferson and Chase. Consistency, right? Or crap, man. Can I do a top 4?
Sure. Your show. I'm just here. I'm just here living in it.
It's true. So let's do a top 4. Because my issue is like you got to put Jamar, Jefferson, CD, and Amon-Ra are the top 4. Look, any way you want to cut it, I think you have to have Chase at 1 right now. But any way you want to cut it, you can't go wrong with the other guys. You know what I mean? That's you're nitpicking at that point. But
all right, I would agree with that. What about players you were wrong about this year? I know you love Neighbors and you try to get him everywhere. What about people you just truly or 100% you thought it was going to go one way, went the other?
So I'll admit this is going to be one of the ones where I admit I was extremely wrong about, and I think you know which one I'm going to talk about. It's how Kyren Williams held the backfield down as much as he did, and this is another one where process in history you try to take that analysis from it and the tea leaves because look, Kyren Williams is a 5th round draft pick. When a team drafts a 3rd round running back and invests that much kind of capital in it, it definitely rings a bell to me. Okay, when they drafted Blake Corum. Which, by the way, their stature, it's almost hard to tell them difference on the field because like they're similar size. And the fact that they're 23 and 22 is very confusing. Just throwing that out there, Rams. Can we fix that, please? But yeah, look, I was completely wrong. Kyren Williams was fantastic this year. Was the lead dog in the backfield. Corum got some run, but it's Kyren's backfield and touchdowns are rolling in the bunches like they have been the last few years. So I was wrong about that one. Shane.
McVay, and I was nervous about him because I had Williams, so I was trying to believe in him just out of sheer will.
Didn't you just trade him? Trade heavily to get him too?
I did trade for him, and then you started dogging him out. Made me very, very, very upset. But no, McVay does stick with one guy usually, and he'll pepper Corum in, and I think they took Corum as a luxury that. If something happened to Kyren, they had to basically, like you said, a twin in the backfield to just plug him in and let him play. But I think Blake Corum didn't get enough time to try to get a rhythm going, but Kyren just looked really good this year.
The thing about Kyren is I think Blake Corum has better physical traits. The thing with Kyren Williams is he's so deliberate, right? With his running style. Like he'll let the hole set up, but once that hole's there, he is going through it like a Mack truck. And I think that's what McVay likes, right? So I can't hate on I'll be happily wrong on this one. But so Shane, enough of me embarrassing myself. Let's hear one of yours that you were wrong about.
First, Jordan Love. I thought Jordan Love was going to be top 5 and guess what? I wasn't able to get him in most leagues
No.
that I played in, but I was big on Jordan Love. I did a lot of best ball Green Bay stacks. I thought Reed was going to take a step up. I thought between Reed, Watson, Dobbs, I know all the guys on Ballers were big into the we're big into Wicks.
Yeah.
So I thought he was going to be great, and I think he finished. I got my notes as 17th in QB with that offense, with that weapons. They're another team that has looked lost to me down the stretch, just like the Steelers and the Texans have.
Yeah, no, I agree. So I think the first game of the season with him getting injured really set him back, because you could tell when he first came back, he was pressing. There's a lot of throws where you're like, okay, dude, that he's like triple covered. What are we doing here? The thing that gets me is the Packers really got in a rhythm with Josh Jacobs and really establishing the run, and that really took away from his passing yardage and stats. I mean, if that works for your team, but I agree with you. They have kind of looked like they're, I don't want to say limping into the playoffs, but they're definitely not firing on all cylinders. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. I don't feel as bad about them as I do the Steelers, but
Oh God.
But I had a lot of Jordan Love just was on fire at the end of the year.
Yeah, no.
And I thought they added more pieces. I mean, they've got two. I mean, their whole offensive receiving core is very young, very talented, very fast. So, but you win some, you lose some. I think there's a guy in here, both of our lists, because he burned probably both of us, was Tyreek Hill this year.
Yeah, no. So I'll take that one to start off with. I mean, most people took him top half of their fantasy football drafts, especially redraft. I mean, look, he's been fantastic, and he's usually been pretty Tua injury proof. I mean, look, there is definitely a drop off when Tua's not in there, but this year was just non-existent. Like, if Tua was not playing, there's no way you could trust Tyreek Hill to get over 7 points, and that really hampered him. And the other thing is, though, they're starting to treat Miami kind of like they did Kansas City, right? Like, hey, y'all do whatever the hell y'all want underneath. We're gonna have two safeties way back. You're not getting past us, right? So that
his
really
big plays were gone. Big play from him were gone.
All gone. I mean, that's all I have on it. I mean, if you want to expand a little bit more on Tyreek, but that's really it.
No, I think that's fair. I had next on my list is someone I traded away, and it's not that I dislike the player. I thought in the offense he would not do as well. This is really embarrassing. But Saquon Barkley, I traded him away this year in Dynasty, based on the fact that I had Hall, A-Chain, and Kyron. I did not get a really good return for him with Rome Odunze.
Hindsight.
In hindsight. But the one part which is just crazy to look at his stats, he was stopped on the 1 yard line 14 times. So he had this amazing season, and I was concerned with the tush push with the Hurts and taken away from him. And, there's a lot of mouths to feed in that offense. And I was like, hey, he's getting a little older. I didn't think he was going to do that good. I was 100% wrong. A lot of people had a problem with them sitting him the last game. But to me, you're trying to break a record that was done in 16 games. He has 16 games of production to show. He didn't break it. It's not a big. He still had an amazing season.
Yeah, it's fair. It's fine. Like 2,000 yards and 13 touchdowns. It's okay.
Yeah. Just imagine if he didn't get tackled on the 1 yard line 14 times.
He would have had he wouldn't have broke the record, surprisingly, though.
No.
That LT season, man. Like, I was looking, like, just a little sidetrack. I was looking at some of these, like, boss running backs doing research, like, back in the day. Good Lord. I think the fantasy football community's head would explode if they were getting some of the production that some of these running backs were doing. Like, could you imagine having LT during his MVP season? Like, that, like, good Lord. Anyway, we digress. But look, somebody on my list that you actually mentioned, so it's a great little segue, is Breece Hall. So I was wrong about him because I just thought he was going to have at least 90 receptions. Oh, not 90, but like, let's say 70 receptions with Aaron Rodgers. he was going to be the RB1 and basically take a step forward like the whole Jets offense was. Did not happen. Injuries played a role into it, of course. He can't just he can't shake this injury bug. And surprisingly, he was losing production and touches to Braylon Allen early in the season. Now I don't know if that was to save him or what, but that was really a little concerning. But the production was down. And look, I think we have to start labeling Breece Hall as an injury risk every year now. Like, I don't think he's made it past 12 games.
Yeah, he looked good down the stretch last year. I had high hopes for him. And I do not like Aaron Rodgers. I also have Garrett Wilson. The more that comes out of that organization is just completely dysfunctional.
Yeah.
A couple of my surprises will lead into just how bad that organization is, in my opinion. But I think he's been injured. I think Braylon Allen looked good. They're trying to split it up a little bit more. I think people thought he was just going to continue what he did at the end of the year. But when you have so much dysfunction on a team, I think it's very hard to get going at all anyway. And I mean, Aaron Rodgers has looked like a shell of himself when he was able to play at a high level.
Yep.
I think the defense has just loaded the box and rushed him, and he can't run out of it. And so I think they just took the run away. Yep. And they're going to try to make it. I mean, I was looking at it yesterday. Even with as dysfunctional as it was, Garrett Wilson finished, I think, 9th in fantasy points, which is just, as someone who has him, was crazy to me because I didn't think he was. He had some high peaks, but like, you just so turned off by that whole organization and offense. But yeah, Hall was definitely a disappointment. But these are guys that if like Tyreek, they took away his bread and butter. I think they did the same thing to Breece. My next guy is someone we alluded to. I gave him another shot. He's on multiple of my lists, but is Anthony Richardson.
Okay,
so
let's do it. Let's dive into Anthony Richardson.
I am not caught up on Pat McAfee just eviscerating the Colts organization or the players, and I'm not saying he's right. I just know there's a lot of noise. I think he was dogging out Jonathan Taylor and saying he's a bad influence. Where I had high hopes for that organization, once again, I think you called Downs having a come through year. He looked good. Alex Pierce looked good.
He was on my list. I did take him off though. Josh. Yeah,
Michael Pierce looked great at times. Pittman, I think, is still struggling a little bit from the injury. He started looking a little better down the stretch, but I just don't. Richardson lost me when he tapped himself out the game. It's not like you're an older dude. You got these guys in their late 20s, early 30s running around all game, and you're telling me you just can't. And it turned me off to him, and then I just think there's a whole bunch of dysfunction there. So one, I had high hopes for him because when he did play last year, the season before, he looked incredible, and he looked like he was going to be the next Lamar. He could throw the ball 80 yards in the air, and he could run fast, but he'll be on another one on my list when we get down to it. But I had high hopes for him. I took him in 2 or 3 leagues, and he just let me down.
So, Shane, I don't know if you knew this. I was a card-carrying member of the Anthony Richardson fan club.
Oh, I know. You're part of the reason why because I listened to you, and when we disagree, I really look into why we disagree. So I gave him a shot. He won't get a shot again.
Look, I cannot blame you. Cannot blame you in the slightest. Until we see. All right. First and foremost, I want to say I'm sorry about that.
It's fine. It's fine.
No, but you can't call a locker room dysfunction. This came out of nowhere.
No.
So the thing is with him, there's definitely way too much going behind there. And I'm going to clarify the quote from Pat McAfee about Jonathan Taylor. He was saying that Anthony Richardson basically, when he came in, his first rookie training camp and stuff, you have your best offensive player on the sideline wearing a hoodie because he wants more money, and then doesn't play. So it's basically just it was a bad first example of how things are done in the NFL. So he's saying it's more of a culture thing. I don't disagree. Richardson has all the talent in the world. I think he can be the next Cam Newton with just the physical traits he has. The accuracy's got to get better. If you can't win from the pocket, you're not going to be able to play long in this league. Fantasy football wise, I still think he's a top 12 asset. He's going to get another crack at it, and with the rushing ability alone, he can throw for 40% completion percentage, but run for 80 yards and 2 touchdowns. So you're still getting the production there. But real life quarterback, that leash has got to be very short.
Yeah.
So that's the main thing. But so I'm going to move on to another player that we had extensive discussions about between me and you in the offseason, and that's going to be Dalton Kincaid. This is one guy I was very high on. I could not get him in any league, and I tried. And I mean, I over-offered for him, but nobody would move him because the expectations were so high for him being the number one target in Buffalo with an MVP caliber quarterback, Josh Allen. But for some reason, I don't know if it's injuries or they don't like each other or the connection is just not there. Like, it is just off between those two. And I hope it gets better because the kid has a lot of talent, but to me, he's just a middling tight end right now.
Yeah, he's a stream when you're and hope for the best when your main guy's off. You know how much I like this guy.
Yeah,
I had high hopes for him. He should be doing similar things to Laporta's, Kelsey's, Hawkinson's in that offense. And I don't know if it's they're trying to spread the ball out. They're running more. James Cook looked good this year.
Yes.
They got Amari Cooper, but like when you draft that guy in the first round as a tight end, I would think you would try to make him a focal point of your offense, similar to what the Raiders did with Bowers. And even with having Mayer, you have Mayer and Bowers, you have Knox and Kincaid, and it's not lack of talent. So it's got me my mind boggled because I had high hopes for him.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the ones where I don't know what's going on there, but something's off between those two guys. But Shane, you got any more? I think you got one more on your list?
I do. I have hometown product that he was one of my late round running backs. I liked Brown. I like some of these other guys, but I thought Tajay Spears was going to overtake that backfield, especially after Tony Pollard scorned so many people the year before.
Yep.
But Tony Pollard, a little resurgence. I think he finished like 23rd, maybe in running back points. Yeah. And we don't need to get into it too much. Spears was one of my guys that with the way I build my team's heavy receiver to start, I always throw a bunch up against the wall where for every Chase Brown is a Tajay Spears. So,
100%.
I was wrong on him.
Yeah, I mean, look, he has some injury concerns too. Also, look into the fact that the organization is just a mess right now, and the fact that they gave Tony Pollard a bag of money to go there. So I think they were just force feeding him the ball. But I agree. I think Tajay Spears still has a little bit of a chance. The knee injuries are a little bit concerning because that was one of the main concerns of him coming out. It was that he basically had no cartilage in his knee or something along those lines. So that's a little concerning. But I do like the player though. And
yeah, me too.
Hometown bias, of course. Now, Shane, I have a very fun collective for my last pick of people I was wrong about.
Oh, that's true. This is a good one.
It's a collective. Any Chicago Bear, offensive Chicago Bear player. Good Lord. And you know what? I'm going to lay this right on the blame. Come here. Let's get nice and close in here. Okay. Move this out. Nice and close. Stop hiring Shane Waldron to run your offense. He is terrible. That's all I have to say. Because my goodness, I don't know how this dude keeps getting jobs. He couldn't coach his way out of a paper bag in Seattle. Got shit canned. So you bring him in to foster your number one overall pick? Yeah, it's all fine and dandy. You get all these weapons around, but when you have somebody that's incompetent, it doesn't know how to feature his best players. Look at JSN now. And he'll come up later on my list. Look at JSN. He's actually a dominant wide receiver. What's the difference? Shane Waldron's ass isn't there anymore. So I put that squarely on his feet. The entire offense was a fucking mess. And they need some offensive linemen. That's all I got to say about it.
Yeah, I saw something where I think Ryan Poles has done a good job with personnel like players, getting talent in the building. I heard that he doesn't even want to look at Ben Johnson because Ben Johnson does not want him as the GM, and that if Ben Johnson gets his way, he's going to bring a guy, I think, from Washington or something. But, you know, I didn't take any Chicago player in redraft. Now I have him in Dynasty, hoping for the long-term payoff, but I did not have high hopes with Shane Waldron from a short-term perspective for Chicago Bears players. I feel horrible for Chicago fans. As a Cubs fan myself, they've gone through a lot, but they're like stuck on a loop. Get a quarterback, and then basically fire the coach, reset them. You know, they keep doing it. They have, you know, everybody in that draft class in the first round looked better than Caleb Williams this year. I mean, JJ McCarthy, you can't really,
no,
you can't. But if you were doing a redraft based on just his performance, I would assume that everybody's going to take Daniels, Drake May, and Bo Nix.
Yeah, 100%.
So hopefully they can turn it around for the city of Chicago, but it has to start with the coaching, offensive coordinators, and you know, the smartest thing to me they could do is bring Cliff Kingsbury in some form or fashion. I don't know why they're looking at some of the guys they are, or Ben Johnson, who's an offensive mind. You have to bring an offensive minded guy in there. You could bring in a defensive guy. They have solid defensive players, but they have to get someone who can get Caleb Williams to look like Caleb Williams thinks he plays. So,
or I don't know, maybe just get a coach that accentuates the positives and doesn't force players to do something they're not good at. Like I was reading something, it was like an insider with the Chicago Bears. They were like, yeah, Shane Waldron was basically asking Caleb Williams to make reads and progressions and stuff like a 5-year vet. And it's like, why are you trying to make it harder for this dude?
Yeah, especially when he has no offensive line to help him do that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's bad coaching, and I want to get to the Chicago thing. I don't understand it. You've seen it time and time again. New coach, new quarterback. You marry the two. That's how you win games and win Super Bowls. Not lame duck coach, rookie quarterback. We fired the lame duck coach halfway through the season, and then it's just chaos. You set bad habits for that quarterback. Chicago, look, I believe in Caleb. I think the talent is there. I think Chicago is really botching it right now. But what you gonna say now, Shane? All right, enough of the depressing stuff. Can we go to some stuff that was like really fun and surprising? What you think?
We do have 3 of the same people on our list. So do we want to cover the 3 people we have on our list, or do we want to go with the opposites?
I'm gonna guess real quick. Okay, who we got?
Okay,
Bowers.
Correct.
BTJ.
Correct.
Jonnu Smith.
Correct.
Okay, so we'll cover all 3 right now.
Yeah.
We'll start with Jonnu Smith. Dude, the ageless wonder, man. I swear, this dude just shows up on a team, is productive. Now, look, nowhere near as productive as he was this year. Holy cow! Tight end 4, I think, is what he finished at. Yeah.
Yep.
Like, so that goes back to the Tyreek thing we're talking about. They're taking away the over the top. John Smith's like, hey, I'm gonna go run 7 yards and turn around, guys. I'm full Travis Kelce treatment.
I picked him up and played him for the last half of the year over Mark Andrews and Kyle Pitts in my Dynasty League with you.
Smart.
And in my redraft league, I picked him up and started him as well and benched whatever scrub I had on that team. So, I don't know if he's a long-term kind of guy, but it was a fun ride this year. I think where these other 2 guys are rookies and you know they have the talent. Jonnu Smith was that guy that's like, he's who you're starting every week and he's who you're winning with. And it just was fun to ride for that one.
It is always fun to have a player that people like that comes out of nowhere like Jonnu Smith that you're winning with, because you'd be like, I'm smarter than everybody in the room, or I just had a higher waiver priority. One of the two, it doesn't matter, but it's still fun.
Somebody, I think, in our Dynasty League picked him up and was like, oh, he's not going to keep doing it. Dropped him. And picked him up.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So let's go with BTJ. This one's interesting to me. Brian Thomas Jr., for those who don't know the acronym. He finishes the wide receiver 4 in PPR with Trevor Lawrence and Mac Jones throwing the ball. I'll be 100%.
I think that says everything right there.
Exactly. 10 TDs, 80 catches, almost 1,200 yards. I just got to say it. I knew he was going to be good. I just thought he was going to be more of a vertical guy, but I was completely wrong. He's going to be a wide receiver 1 for a long time to come. And I'm excited to see where it goes. And, man, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility in 2 years that we're talking about the top 4 wide receivers in the league being all LSU players.
That was going to be my question. Do you think that he can repeat what he did this year? I mean, because, Christian Kirk went out early. Gabe Davis was out. Like, I know they had a lot of injuries. I'm not saying those guys are anything near him, but as those players come back, do you think they spread the ball around more, or do you think he's just going to dominate the target share?
Well, don't be surprised if Kirk's cut.
Yeah,
he's got a lot. He's got a very, very high cap number. And anyway, I don't think that affects him so much because he was more of the slot guy anyway. That would be more of an effect on Evan Ingram because when Kirk was out, Evan Ingram feasted. So I would say more Gabe Davis is kind of concerned, but we know what Gabe Davis is. He's Gabe Davis. Like nothing to write home about. Fantasy football wise, he's a decent wide receiver. I just think that finishing 4 here, the sky's the limit. Now, I will say there is a caveat. If that coaching staff gets cleaned out, right, it could be a positive.
Which I'm hearing they are.
Yeah, which it could be a positive if they get another offensive coach, or it could be a detriment if the system doesn't fit them. So that is something to watch, but I do want to shout out this season, though, for him. It was fantastic.
So, barring the coaching change, do you think he would go as a first-round pick at the end of the first round this year? No, say next year, or do you think he's going to be like high second round type of guy?
I think you still have to go high second round just because of the quarterback situation itself. Lawrence has shown the ability to sustain a wide receiver, but who knows with the uncertainty as with the coaching staff and everything like that. So you just don't know.
Speaking of doing a lot with no quarterback, let's talk about Brock Bowers.
Holy cow. So I think everybody's starting to realize that the whole, tight ends take a year to develop. Blah, 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 blah. Like, look, in most aspects, it's true. But I think we just need to realize, like, when we're watching guys playing college and stuff, when he's the best player on the field, he's more than likely to be one of the best players on the field in the NFL as well. Like, when you're watching him as a rookie, you're like, oh, that dude's the best player on the field right now. Like, there's no doubt about it. And them force feeding him the ball. I mean, he only has 4 touchdowns, but the fact that he has 1,100 yards receiving and 108 catches is insane.
PPR, yeah, he has the chance to break the all-time tight end reception record today, I believe, from Zach Ertz in his first year with, just the worst quarterback room maybe besides the Saints. I don't know. Or is it worse than the Saints?
I would say it's probably dude, I don't know. That's a great question. That is a great question. Okay, since you said it, let's go head to head, okay? Would you rather have Gardner Minshew or Derek Carr? And don't take the contracts and stuff out of it, just purely playing.
Well, if I take Gardner Minshew out from what he did this year, I would take Gardner Minshew. But they're about a wash. I would take Gardner Minshew just because he seems like he's a lot more fun to be around.
So I'm going to give it to Carr, and I'm trying to hold my bias because, look, I've been one of the harshest critics of Carr since he's been here. But I would still give us the edge on that one. Now, here's where it's interesting. AOC, Aiden O'Connell, or Spencer Rattler?
I haven't liked what I've seen from Rattler.
It's got to be O'Connell. Yeah.
Yeah.
So here is the tiebreaker, okay? Are you buckled in?
I can already tell you it's not going to be Derek Hainer for me. He looks like he wants to be a supermodel.
So, Jake Hainer or Desmond Ridder?
I'm taking Ridder.
Oh, man. I don't disagree with you, man. But that's so hard to say. Man, now I'm more sad. This is supposed to be the good episode.
I'm sorry. Let's get back to fun stuff. Okay, so I'm going to give you 2 guys because they're very similar in surprises and they play the same position.
Okay. I like it.
Okay. Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that.
I mean, the stats don't lie. They're not in terrible organization, or it just shows a coaching and scheme and, just everything we've talked about. They've looked great. They've won people championships this year. You know, Darnold's looks so good. They're talking about, I don't think they will, talking about fielding offers for JJ McCarthy.
I was going to say that.
You know, so it's just it's crazy. I don't think we need to go too deep into it, but those two guys were huge surprise, because I think a lot of times when you're talking fantasy, you lean towards tight ends and running backs, receivers. But those two guys I thought needed to be mentioned. They've both balled out all year.
Completely, 100% agree with you on that one. I will say, 2018 draft class, the quarterback, wild, and it's turned out to be one of the better ones. I do want to throw in about, I'm glad you mentioned about fielding offers for JJ McCarthy. I personally think he gets the Jordan Love treatment, Aaron Rodgers treatment, where he's going to sit for 3 years. I think they signed Darnold to a 3-year, probably $100 million, $150 million contract, somewhere in that range. Because, I mean, look, if he leads to number one seed, you can't. I mean, look, they did the Case Keenum and stuff, but I just don't see him doing it again. I read somewhere where they were like, hey, they may trade him to New York, the Giants, for their first-round pick. And
I'd love to see that.
I was like, I don't hate that. I don't hate that at all. But now, look, we're fantasy booking here. That's just fun. But I'm glad you brought them two up. Look, hats off to Sam Darnold. Played his ass off this year. And then Baker Mayfield's just continuing to climb and starting to reach top of the league discussions. You know what I mean?
He's fun to watch.
Oh,
he can run. He doesn't get enough credit for his running. He's making things happen with his legs.
Oh, as a Saints fan, trust me, I know.
Yeah. I like his Tommy Cutlets impression this year. That had me
so aggressive, though.
Yeah, it was aggressive Tommy Cutlets. So, and then I only have one other guy on my list, and the biggest surprise to me is that he's not on your list.
Well, I'll cover my two first.
Okay.
I went with the same kind of route you did. I did two at the same position, and it's at running back, and it's actually running backs that finished RB12 and RB13 this year. I'm gonna start with Chuba. For a guy that's on a team that drafted the running back at the highest draft spot, y'all know what I'm trying to say. He finished with almost 1,200 yards and 10 touchdowns before being shut down this year. He won some people some leagues as well. And I'm sure you were getting him probably like, I don't know, 10th round kind of thing. And look, I missed on him 100% in my keeper league. I could have kept him for like a 12th round pick. Chose against it. Joke's on me, but that's the way it rolls.
Got himself a contract too, right?
Got himself a nice contract too. And look, they look better now that Jonathan Brooks unfortunately tore his ACL again. But they have some security there with him. So that's all I can really say about Chuba is that he was that offense, and it's an offense that's on the upswing. So I'll be excited to see where he goes next year. You can't discount him as a top RB option. But the other one I want to talk about is good old Joe Mixon's resurgence in the Texans offense. Even with missing games, he finished the RB13 with almost 1,000 yards rushing and 11 touchdowns. And he was, like, if you watch some of those games, he was the offense. Like, there's points where he's averaging like 3 yards a carry because they're just stacking the box, but they keep giving them to him because that's all they can do.
I don't know if you caught this last night. Did you watch the game last night?
I was in and out. I had people over and stuff. So
in true great fashion, Troy Aikman says that they should start raising the bar on running back expectations because hitting 1,000 yards isn't that hard anymore. I can't make this up. Like 2 seconds later, they show a stat that Najee Harris is the only running back the last 4 years to rush for 1,000 yards each year.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, if it's not that hard, why is he the only one out of all these people who have done it? And
Thank
I'm
you.
like, I said, I can't believe his team just made him look completely stupid. But anyway.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, you say stupid shit, you gotta have people gotta fact check you on it. You know what I mean? Like,
I thought it was comical. So
let me hear that last one you got, because now I'm curious.
JSN.
Oh, he's coming later. He's coming later.
He's coming. Well, yeah. So JSN. I was a little weary just because Lockett's still there. I think he's finally fell off a little bit. Great player, but I think I would say that JSN is probably their number one receiver, even though with DK being that just monster. I mean, JSN just looked incredible the last half of the year. So
there's more versatility with JSN as well.
Yeah, I know we'll get into him a little bit more. So, but he was my last guy.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. He's in my excited draft column. Spoiler alerts. So, and which I didn't do in Dynasty 2 years ago. So, it's fun to watch how this progresses. Look, I was victory lapping it last year. I was like, man, I made the right choice of not taking JSN, and now I look like an idiot. But it's funny how the tides
Hey,
change,
it's
man.
every year, baby. You just keep rotating. It doesn't.
Yeah.
Your opinions can change. That's all about that I know.
I know, man. I know. So let's move right along to the players that we are not drafting again. I'm gonna get the elephant out of the room on this one. I am not taking CMC again. Just not happening. I got screwed.
He's been on my list for 3 years.
I know. Look, he was fantastic last year. We should have seen this coming with the over 400 touches thing. I still don't understand fully how calf strain goes to bilateral tendonitis of your Achilles, but sure, why not? Then he tears his LCL, hoping a good recovery. I'm just not touching that anymore. You can't take the injury risk. And yeah, it's great when it happens, but it also can ruin a season like it did to me two different seasons. So, Shane, who's the first person on your list?
Any Seattle running back.
I can see that.
So I'm not touching. So I'll preface my list as more of a. It's not a long-term list besides CMC. I think everybody on this list is more of, and we've kind of touched on some of them. Is I won't draft them next year. I'm not saying they're CMC is the only one for me. Is I will never draft again. But the Seattle backfield, Walker's had some injuries. But then he comes back and it's like they want to feed him. Charbonnet's look good. They don't do a dual it's just it's so
it's all or nothing.
Yeah, all or nothing. That I just had that as my next year. I just will be out on them. I'd be more in on JSN or even Metcalf. So that's my guy. I agree with your second one. He's not on my list, but I do agree with him.
Yeah, the second one is Travis Etienne. And look, he helped me go to a Dynasty Championship last year, had a fantastic run. The touchdown regression was real this year. He didn't have the touchdowns. He had injuries. And then Tank Bigsby split the backfield, which just made it a muddled mess. And I want nothing to do with it moving forward. He was good. You can't trust it.
What if they had a different, like a very strong offensive coaching change? Does that change your mind any, or is that the
only thing
at least for next year, he's off your board?
At least for next year, unless they got rid of Tank Dell. I mean, not Tank Dell, Tank Bigsby.
Okay.
It's just too much run, even when he was healthy. And then he's not the greatest receiving running back either. So he really needs to be the bell cow. And if he's not the bell cow, it's hard for him to sustain like a top 15 running back. So
that's
I just don't want to think
because Chase Brown is the best receiving.
He is
running back.
He is 100%.
No. I'd like you to touch on your next one because I do disagree with you, and maybe it's a fresh disagree, but this guy got me 41 points in my Dynasty Championship this year.
100% agree. It's just not consistent. It is not consistent.
Okay.
For where I'm going to have to draft him, 3rd, 4th round, not doing it. Not because he's going to go sign somewhere. He's going to get.
I think he stays with the Bengals.
You think so? So even proves my point even more. Stays with the Bengals. He has a great quarterback, great situation, everything like that. To me, he's one, and he kind of ties in with the next guy on my list too. They're productive, but they are not consistent, and they are the most frustrating people to have on your lineup because you have to guess the week, and I'd want no part of that anymore. I'm done trying to guess.
What if he went to like the Patriots?
Same thing. Don't want any part of it.
Even though they have no clear cut.
It's more him.
Yeah. Okay.
It's more him just because the injuries, and just not being consistent. There's some body language stuff I don't really like either that I've seen from him, but that's just nitpicking.
Yeah. Well, my next I'll give you is a duo, and I had him this year and they burned me. I'm not saying I'll never draft him again, but Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. I did not see. They did not look on the same page. I felt like Kyler Murray was trying to get this guy killed at some point in time with some of the throws he was making. They did not. And I know Marvin Harrison Jr. has the talent, but they look lost out there this year. Whereas it's not like he couldn't get the ball to Trey McBride 8 to 10 times a game. So I don't know what's going on over there, but they're to me, I'm out on them next year. I think they could be in play the following year, but they're definitely both out for me next year.
So I think it's definitely more a Kyler thing with Marv this year. I'll be honest with you, I don't like a lot of what I see from Marvin Harrison. He's talented. He's very talented, but I think we need to realize that he may not be the alpha dog that we thought he was coming out. There's a lot of separation issues I have with him. Like, there's just times where I don't see the separation where it should be for a wide receiver that we're talking about that caliber. But I love the hands, love the route running ability. It's just more of a like speed kind of thing for me. But I will say, dude, Kyler has to be another one that's very frustrating, right? Has all the talent in the world, but it's just something just always seems off with him, right?
Call of Duty.
Well, yeah. It's actually funny you mentioned it. If you go look at his stats and when they started falling off, it's right when Call of Duty started coming out.
Yeah, I did notice that.
Yeah, it's hilarious, but I think Marv's going to be okay. Kyler worries me, though. Like, Kyler, I could see possibly getting like, if they don't make the playoffs next year and he regresses, I could see them trying to move on.
Yeah.
I know that contract's ridiculous, but we all, from the Russell Wilson deal, we all know that that's just funny money, right? Like, they can figure out ways out of it. So the next guy on my list, and look, I've stuck a flag in this for the longest time, but I've just given up, is Najee Harris. I know you just gave that stat that he's run for 1,000 yards, but my God, I'm not for the ride anymore. I'm just not. I can't do it. It's too nerve-wracking. And this year, what really saved him was the receptions he got, and I don't see that as a sticky stat for him. So next year, I feel like he's going to be a little overdrafted, and that's going to be a issue for him. And
yeah, I wouldn't draft him. There's not an offensive member of the Steelers I'd like anything to do with as of right now. That might change based on if they move on from Russell Wilson or, what they do. But and I love their coach. I don't dislike the team, but just not impressed at all.
Yeah.
My next guy, I got two left on my list. Richardson. Yeah. Anthony Richardson.
We talked about that. Yeah.
We kind of talked about that. And then you alluded to in your I'm not touching anyone from Chicago unless I just see some kind of offensive change and see preseason or something that they look good. But they're everyone's off my list until they same thing with Marvin Harrison Jr. until they show that they can be consistent.
Yeah.
Where I would have to draft some of these guys, I'm not taking them.
So Marv next year, let's say 4th round.
He probably will. Yeah, he'll probably go in the 4th or 5th round, I would think.
And the thing is, though, that still feels rich to me right now.
Way too rich.
Yeah, right. Like, you look at the guys on this list, like CMC. That's a 1st round draft pick. I don't care if he was hurt all this year, or a 2nd round draft pick at the latest. I'm not risking it. Right.
I'm gonna pull up the Fantasy Pros just to see, because they have like their dynasty rankings for next year.
Yeah.
And I can tell you they way too high.
Yeah. I mean, look, if you were trying to buy low CMC, this is the year to do it. If you want to take that risk, because the downside is, okay, he just gets hurt again. But I mean, his price tag is not that high right now. So let me throw some names at you, Shane, as a gamble. Okay. Would you rather have CMC next year or Brian Robinson Jr.?
There's no running back that I would not take over CMC.
Okay, that's fair.
So I mean, Brian Robinson clearly. Just to go back, so this is their rankings, their PPR rankings right now, going into next year. Marvin Harrison is 18th.
Yeah, that sounds about right. 18th overall.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about wide receiver. Yeah, that's just
no, 18th overall.
That still seems a little rich to me.
Let me see and then in Dynasty,
because you're talking about a guy that's going to go 2nd round in a startup.
I mean, they have him as an 18th round pick in Dynasty.
That's what I'm saying. So he'll be the basically middle of the 2nd round for a 12-team startup.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So,
that's wild to me. So let me get to my last one of not drafting again. And it's nothing to do with him personally. It's because of the budding romance between Matthew Stafford and Puka Nacua. I really felt bad for Cooper Cup. You know, that's the guy who's on my list after I'm done all the shenanigans in the front. Dude, my goodness. Like, did he stop going to breakfast with Matthew Stafford or what? If Puka was playing, it did not matter. Cooper Cup was just getting shut out. Unless they were scoring 50 points, didn't matter. He had to be one of the most frustrating people on my lineup this entire year because I can't take him out because I take him out, he's going to get 20 targets and 140 yards. But I leave him in there, he's going to put up a 0 and a goose egg in the first round of the playoffs. So I just think I see the decline in his numbers and the uptick in Puka Nakua's. And look, that's fine. It's the natural progression goes in this league, but I think he's more on a downslide than anything.
Don't disagree at all.
Yeah, it's very frustrating to watch. I could not watching Rams games this year was very hard for me. Very frustrating.
Not for me. I had Puka and Kyron Williams. It was great for me.
Yeah, I bet it was. So
right, let's talk about exciting people. How about that? Let's end it with exciting people.
Start off with a bang, sir. Why don't you go first?
I'm going to throw out one because this is something I never do, and I think I'm going to do it next year. I'm excited to go early quarterback next year.
Okay.
I got lucky. I got lucky with Baker, but I have not been normally a high quarterback person, but I saw what the Josh Allens, the Lamars can do to your lineup, and if you can hit late on some guys, I said so. I think next year, not in all, but I think I'm going to try to go after some of those guys where normally I've been going after that 8th, 9th quarterback because the point differential between like 3 and 10 is usually a lot closer. It's not as close this year. It's pretty big. So that's one where I normally don't go, and that's what I'm going to go look at for next year.
I like it. I definitely like it. You're right. Having Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson was a superpower this year, or even Joe Burrow was just, or Jaden Daniels when he was hot. Like he had some down games, but it really is a cheat code to have that as your added quarterback for sure. One that I'm going to go with, I'm going to leave the first one on my list for last, just because not technically in the league yet. Spoiler alert. I'm going to go with a guy that you mentioned earlier is Trey McBride. Man, the fact that he didn't have the touchdown production this year makes me excited for next year. Yeah, because there's going to be positive progression there. So that's why I'm excited. Yeah, the price tag's going to be very, very expensive, but I'm kind of looking at like you look at quarterbacks, right? If you can get one of those top guys at tight end, it makes a world of difference in your lineup.
Yeah, he's on my list too.
Okay, so it's easy enough.
Yeah, we had a couple of the same.
Okay. Well, throw me out another one that you had the same as me.
I don't know if I will draft him because I'm not a high running back guy, but Gibbs, he's fun to watch. I mean, obviously he's getting everything right now. So, but I don't know how fast Montgomery's coming back, but I just think he's the real deal. He can catch the ball. He can break it for big yards. I want all pieces of that offense. I don't think even if Ben Johnson moves on, that offense is going to slow down any.
No, I don't disagree with you there. I'm going to make a bold prediction here. Well, it's not really a bold prediction because, I mean, where they finished this year. But my prediction for next year is that Gibbs and Bijan will be 1-2. Like, it's going to be the year of the 23 running back.
I will tell you when it comes to Bijan, too, I know you have him in Dynasty. I had him in our Yahoo League, and I almost put him on, like, a couple of these lists, like, and then I started looking into it. I'm like, I guess maybe I just wasn't paying attention. He was so consistent this year.
Yes.
He did not really – he didn't have the game where he had like 30 or 40, but he only had like 2 or 3 games where he was under double digits.
Yep.
He averaged 15 or 16 points a game. So whereas like I thought, okay, look, I'm his price tag's too high. I mean, in those early rounds, you want consistency. That offense is gonna keep maturing, and he's gonna just keep. He's got the talent. I mean, so
you see it. It is so obvious on the field.
He's close. He's very close to just being and he had a great year. He's the third running back, but to me, he's the third running back, and he wasn't that exciting.
No,
which is what really, it's not to knock the guy. Just I would almost had him on. I was like, well, I'm probably not going to draft him because of how high I need to draft him. And
But then you
people
look
like
at it, you're like,
Gibbs, and then you're like, well, he's the third running back. What am I looking at?
yeah.
So he was interesting to look and dive into his stats this year.
And I'm glad you said about the consistency because like that's what these two guys have is consistency and the upside to be the number one running back, like without question. So that's why I'm excited to draft Gibbs next year. I didn't want to put Bijan on here again because I feel like I'm beating a dead horse on that point. Everybody knows how much I like Bijan. So I put Gibbs on this one. So I'll jump since we talked about Bijan to the next one that I had on my list is Drake London. I've championed him. He was personally my number one receiver coming out of the 22 class. Man, let me tell you, Penix has looked shaky, but I'm excited to see where he goes with the with how he matures, right? And the way they play in London in the slot, I think it's going to be as he gets more comfortable doing that. Look, even with Kurt sucking, he was still one of the top receivers in the league. So if we can get some consistency at quarterback, I think the sky's the limit. Double-digit touchdown guy.
He I don't know the stat 100%, but I want to say with Penix, London's 28% target share. So his target share has gone up since Penix took over. I think if Penix gets comfortable in that offense, there's so many weapons. I hate that it's the Falcons, but if we're just taking bias out, I agree with you. He double-digit touchdowns. Penix seems to like him. Probably someone we didn't mention in the not drafting again ever, which I don't think we did draft, but Kyle Pitts in that offense. I don't.
Oh, I mean, my feelings on that. Yeah, I've never liked Kyle Pitts. Sorry,
I went a little off script here, like a little deep dive on my next pick.
Love it. Let's do it.
Is Jalen McMillan for the Bucks, and the reason why I like him is. Now, I don't know if Godwin's coming back from that injury, but when Godwin went out and Evans isn't getting any younger, Baker likes this kid. He was getting the ball to him. He's clearly the third receiver. Even with Shepard, he kept dropping the ball. He looked lost out there. Obviously Otten's been out too, but as a later guy, I think that you could build – if you like we're talking going early quarterback, early tight end, I feel like he's somebody you could draft. And I mean, if you've looked at his stats over the last couple of games, he's really good, coming to his own.
Yeah.
So he's someone I'm going to keep an eye on for next year.
100% agree with you on that one. That's a great pick. I do agree with the Godwin thing. The only thing, and the thing is though, like even if they let's say Evans eventually moves on, right? He's not getting any younger, like you said. He's eventually going to either retire or have some regression in performance, which by the way, I just want to shout Mike Evans out. That dude is ageless wonder. He's going for his 11th consecutive 1,000-yard season to start a career, which would be a record, beating Jerry Rice. So I just want to throw that out there. Like, even as a Saints fan, gotta give him his due. But I'd like McMillan, and I think he has a role in this offense, even if those two guys move on and they draft another wide receiver. Like you said, Baker has a connection with him. So I really like that pick, and it's not going to cost you very much.
Yeah, no, I agree. And then your next one on your list, I also have on my list. So I'll let you talk about our buddy JSN.
JSN, my goodness. The one after getting out of underneath the thumb of Shane Waldron, who just thought he could only catch screen passes last year, apparently, or within a yard of the line of scrimmage. The last half of the season, he's broken out. He's looked like the guy that we all thought he was going to look like coming out of college. And you know what, Shane? I was going to say that as my big thing of that he's the number one receiver in Seattle, but you beat me to it already as a bold prediction next year. But I don't see any reason why not. You keep DK as that outside receiver, that X receiver, and you just move JSN all around and just feed him the rock. And I think that's the main thing that's impressive is the target share he was getting while on this little run he had.
Oh yeah, I mean he's looked incredible. I know you want to talk about your favorite draft prospect. I'll throw my last one out. We've already talked about him. I had Brian Thomas Jr. and Ladd McConkey on this list as well. Yes. I think I can get Ladd at a little bit better price next year. Whereas, when you notice playing in New Orleans with LSU players, they're already overdrafted as they are. So But if I could get a piece of Brian Thomas Jr. just from what he showed this year, I'd like it. And then I'm a big believer on Ladd, so I would buy into that.
Great picks. The only thing with Ladd is, and I'm just going to ask you because I don't think this is the case. Do you think if they add another wide receiver in the draft, or because I think we're in agreement they need one more, and maybe a tight end, they need another offensive weapon for passing game.
I think they're going to add the tight end from Penn State.
Okay.
Warren. I could see them.
And I love Warren.
Yeah, I do too. I could see them adding him. Maybe depending on the free agent market. I think they have a lot of other needs that I don't know if I could see them spending high on the tight end. I don't know if they would go maybe first round. I could see them maybe taking a flyer, second, third round on somebody, but I'd have to look and see. I think they just need a lot more besides receiving help.
I gotcha.
So depends on how they want to build it. I know he likes defense and running the ball.
Yeah.
Your next person, I don't think he's going to fall. He's the on ESPN's board. He's the fourth rated player on the board. But I could see them going after him, and that is I'll let you talk about Mr. Ginty.
So Mr. Ashton,
my Heisman winner. Look, my Heisman winner.
And it was very close. And I'm gonna preface this real quick because Shane said it was my favorite draft prospect. In this draft coming up, I'm gonna say it now. He's not my favorite. He's my second favorite. I think we all know who my man crush is in this draft class right now, and that's Tetairoa McMillan. So just throwing that out there. Now let's get into Genty. And the reason I put Genty on here above Tet McMillan is because I think Tet's gonna end up in a bad situation right now, and I don't know how that's gonna work out for him. So I went with a clear shot. To me, it just makes the most sense. He's going to be a Dallas Cowboy. Like it seems too obvious at this stage and point, but I can definitely see him on the Chargers. But the thing with Genty is there's a speed combination to him, the vision. He's tough as shit for a guy that's only about 5'8". Like he's going to be a solid running back in this league. There's not a hole in his game. He had 60 receptions last year. They didn't ask him to catch the ball this year. What worries me is the price tag, especially if he goes to a really good team. If that price tag is going to be that high. But I mean, if I can get him in the third round, I have no problem with it. I think that.
Yeah, depending on where he goes, I agree with that. Third or fourth round.
I just think he's going to hit the ground running. So if I had at a scale of 1 to 10, if I had Bijan at a 10 coming out, I'd say I'd have Genty as like an 8, 7 range right now. I still have to watch a little more tape on him, but still impressive. And I still think he's going to be a solid contributor right off the jump.
I have my guy from Arizona State about the same level as him, Genty, but that'll be for our draft prospect episode.
Yes, that's gonna be a fun one. I don't disagree with you at all. Scadaboo has definitely made himself some money, and just wait for the physical scores to come out from the combine and stuff. If he tests the way I think he's going to test, he's going to fly.
He's a hoss, dude.
Exactly. So he's going to move up draft boards as well. But yeah, man. So is there anybody else on your list or?
No, that's it, man. This is fun. It's been an odd year, I would say I was wrong more than I was right on certain people this year, which I feel for both of us is not usually the case.
No,
but it's been a fun year. I still was able to squeak out one championship out of my 4 leagues. So, and I was in contention for 2 other ones. So I can't complain, especially with the way the year's going.
No, I mean, me, man. Like, I made the playoffs in 2 out of the 3 of my big leagues. I mean, I finished 7-7 in the one I didn't make the playoffs in. I didn't have a losing record. I only made the first round of the playoffs. This year was weird as all could be for me with my teams and my like I said, this year was just frustrating because the process changed significantly, right? Like the way you have to think about it, because the older running backs came back. Like one guy we didn't shout out on here is James Conner, had a phenomenal year, and it's very weird. It's very, very weird year. But I think that's all we got to talk about today. But we will be bringing you this regularly. We're going to come up with some more lists, some off-season stuff, and we're going to have draft prospect stuff separately for the full draft, and then we're going to have stuff related to fantasy football here. So look forward to that. Give us a like, drop a subscribe as well, and let us know what y'all want to see from the Fantasy 365 crew. This is our new show. It's the first one, and we'll be bringing it here. And like I said, Joey will be back next time to join us. He was just out this week. Shane, is there anything else you want to add before we go?
No, that's it. Good luck with any bets today, and
yes, sir.
I look forward to seeing how these playoff scenarios play out.
Yes, sir. We'll see how it goes. From everybody at the Noble Steady Sort of Sports Talk, thank you for tuning in for our first Fantasy 365 episode. We'll be back next time with more fantasy information. Later.
Peace.